Welcome to the Doctor of Digital podcast, and coming to you straight from the Toonsmith headquarters. That is the bell, so that means we've got another exciting episode for you. This is a podcast for business leaders, for CEOs, people who are trying to grow their business with social audio. So naturally, you're going to see why I would have my guest today, Bill Eastin, because he is talking about a very related topic. So everything that I try to introduce, you're going to understand now so you can reap the benefits later. And if you stick around to the end of the episode, which of course I hope you do, you're also going to be qualified for that $4.99 value. And you stick around, you will hear that at the tail end. So with that as an introduction, I'd like to introduce Bill Eastin, who is a franchise broker consultant from one of my favorite states. It's Arizona. And thank you, Bill, for joining us today. I'm glad that you're here, taking time out of your schedule. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? How was it that you got started in this field of being a franchise broker?
Sure, Nick. First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I spent 35 years in financial services, pretty much my whole working career, up until about 3 years ago. Left that industry. The last 12, 13 years, I was a branch manager for one of the Morgan Stanley branches, and I had about 50 financial advisors that reported to me. And half of my day was spent helping them improve their client experience, and the other half of my day was spent recruiting a competition to come to work for me in my Morgan Stanley office. And I very quickly realized when I started looking at the franchise brokering field that, as crazy as it sounds, the skill set to be successful as a branch manager, and I was for quite a long time, was very, very similar to what it takes to be successful as a franchise broker. Mm-hmm. And I started a couple of years ago. I was the Rookie of the Year for the trade organization that I belonged to in 2020. Got off to a real good start. So that's pretty much how I got started.
Interesting. So done a number of things over the course of your career, and that's what I'd like to ask you a question about now. Since you've been around for a while and done some other things in your career, what would you say are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in your experience, and maybe tying that in with the franchise business that you're in currently?
The industry has morphed over time, and the franchisors are more in tune with what people are looking for in business ownership. And probably one of the biggest changes, and probably one of the biggest myths about franchising, everybody thinks that you need to have $1 million or $2 million to start your own business or to buy into and invest into a franchise. Sure. Really nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I have 700 plus different business concepts in my inventory, and probably 75% of them are $150,000 to a $250,000 investment. And most of that money can be, funded with a lot of different options. One of the other big changes is in the category of semi-passive ownership. It used to be that if you owned a franchise, you had to really be hands-on involved in it. Right. And most of them, again, the industry has morphed into either you can be involved in the business to get it set up and running, and then shortly thereafter hire a manager to handle the day-to-day operations. And more of them have even gone to you can hire a manager from day one, and just wear kind of the CEO role. And the biggest change that's come about just in the last year or so is that some of the franchises have developed a field management team, and they will absolutely run the entire business for you. Obviously, they're going to charge you for it, but it gives a lot of people the opportunity they have the funds to invest in a business, right? But they're a little fearful about stepping away from their corporate job and their corporate paycheck, sure, because they don't know how long it's going to take for the business to get ramped up and replace their income. Mm-hmm. Well, with these field management teams, you keep your corporate job, and they'll run it for a year or 18 months or 2 years and let it get ramped up to the point where you can see how much revenue and income it will produce for you, so that you can then step away from your corporate job, step into your own business, and feel comfortable that you're not going to miss a beat in terms of supporting yourself and your family. So that new version of semi-passive ownership has been a big change in the last few years.
I see. That kind of leads into another question that struck me here. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the hot growth areas. And the reason I'm asking is that this may or may not have been affected by the pandemic and people dealing with work-life balance and things like that. But are you able to say there are some areas that you would say are in a particular interest for people interested in a franchise business?
Yes, and in some of it's interesting because pre-COVID, one of the questions I would regularly get is, Bill, I just want to look at things that are recession-proof. Mm-hmm. Now people want things that are not only recession-proof, but they want things that are COVID-proof.
Okay.
And it's probably where we're experiencing some of the most rapid growth. Anything that revolves around elder care, keeping people at home longer. I mean, if you remember in the most darkest days of COVID, the headlines were that the largest population of people people were dying from it were in nursing homes and memory care units and assisted living facilities. And so there's been a big emphasis about, how can we keep mom at home longer before she needs to go to a facility? If she does have to go to a facility, how do we find the right one? Those are two separate categories. How do we keep mom mobile, and how do we keep her safe? So anything around that whole elder population is really just exploded in the last couple of years. There's a handful of others, a lot of things that are related to green industries, and that not only good for the economy, but good for the environment as well. That's a whole new category that's popped up in the last couple of years that is really starting to take off as well. So probably those couple of things.
Okay. Now let me ask you this question. If a person is listening and you have probably a really good idea to give them some education, some background and guidance, but what would you say if an individual was thinking or considering about a franchise? What would you say would be a good candidate for the particular field of franchising?
Boy, it's a pretty broad group of people, really. I mean, my typical client is 40 to 60 years old, and I have clients that are older and younger, but that's where the majority of them fall. They've got a lot of real life experience. Maybe they decided it's time to leave corporate America. Maybe they took a severance package. But it's a pretty broad group of people. I'd say it's people that have more real world experience. They're probably better suited for it. I've had clients in their 20s. But they struggle we struggle, I guess I should say, to help find a good match for them. I mean, that's a big part of what I do is taking people through a discovery process and, finding franchises that are good fits for their business strengths and what they're trying to accomplish, how much money they want to invest, how much time they want to invest. So hopefully that's a help.
Yeah, and that's what I'd kind of like to explore a little bit. So I'm thinking of a person who says, well, I would be thinking about a franchise and maybe I would be a candidate for it. But what kind of expertise do you bring if you could talk through the process a little bit so that if a person was thinking about it, they'd say, how would I know that I'm a good candidate, in other words?
Right. Most people I find, I start under the premise of they don't know what they don't know about franchising.
Okay.
I take people through a discovery process. Most people are familiar with a DISC analysis or a Briggs-Myers where you answer a series of questions. And I have a tool like that is designed specifically around the franchising industry. And it takes 15 or 20 minutes, and it very quickly helps me uncover what their business strengths are, where their business compass is pointed. And then I ask them a series of questions to help build a search criteria. I have them go through and rank 50 plus different business categories.
Okay. And
I plow all that information into that database that I have with 700 plus different franchises. And it gives me back a list that I need. I have to do some refining work on it, but it eventually gets me to a list of maybe 25 or 30 different business concepts that on paper paper, based on all the information that I gave that database, on paper look like they'd be a good fit for people, or for the client, I guess I should say. I provide them that information in an information package that's basically 2 or 3 pages of basic information about each one of the companies. How long have they been in business? What's the franchise fee? How many employees do you need? How much office space do you need? And then we go back and forth through a series of calls and eliminate that list. And then I make introductions to the different individual companies and help them start the process of going through discovery with different franchises that on paper look like they'd be a good fit for them. So the other thing we do that's critically important is help them with the funding aspect. The lion's share of people use either small business authority loans, which are not complicated but not easy, but very time-consuming to get them. And there's also a process where people can access old retirement dollars, and if you structure it properly, you can take money from an IRA or a 401k and you can use it for a new business startup, and so long as it's structured properly, the IRS doesn't view it as a taxable event or charge any early withdrawal penalties.
Oh.
And because it's an equity investment in your own business, it's not a loan, it doesn't come with any debt service either. So funding is a big piece of the puzzle that we help most people with.
Yeah, that's what I think would be helpful to see so a person understand the process. And it seems like that's what you're able to do and help them go through and walk through a discovery process, see if they're the right candidate and if they have the right characteristics for a franchise.
And I just add one more thing. I mean,
Sure.
Most people who try and do this on their own, and people can do it on their own, but most people who try and do it on their own, it's a very elongated process with a lot of steps. And if you don't have someone helping you do it, most people get to some point where they get frustrated with the process. They throw their hands up in the air and say, this is too difficult, and the heck with it, and I'm going back to work for corporate America, and they never get the chance to finish the process. So I think that's the real value that we add.
Makes sense. That's what I think is really key. So during this interview, I'm thinking there's a number of people who probably start thinking about, now might be the time and I might be in the right position. This does look like a good opportunity for me. So if they were interested and they wanted to get into franchise ownership, how would you recommend that they get in touch with you? What would be the best way?
Sure. A couple different things. You can go to our website, and I say ours because I've got a couple business partners, but our website is franchisecopilots.com. CoPilots with an S on the end. You can send me an email, bill@franchisecopilots.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You just look for Bill Eastin or Franchise CoPilots. You will find me on LinkedIn. Or the most obvious one is give me a call. My cell phone number is 248-229-3793. I'm on the phone a fair amount, but if you leave me a voicemail message, I'll circle back with you quickly. And I am all about education and knowledge sharing. And in most instances, the first phone call that I have with somebody is really just getting their questions answered and helping them determine if franchising is something they should consider. So I welcome the phone call and look forward to getting people's questions answered.
That's awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much. I really learned a lot, and hopefully the listeners did as well, too. Thank you for your time and taking out time for your busy schedule to join me today. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate the opportunity, Mick. Thanks a bunch.
You bet. That's awesome. So if you listen to the very end, I made a promise, and here comes the promise. If you would like a complimentary $4.99 value analysis of your website versus your competitors, send me your website and 2 or 3 of your competitors. Let's compare notes and see how you can take them on. So you can get a hold of me. Easy to do, 619-389-36. That is 3636, or Mick, as in Jagger, except he makes a lot more money. Mick.Smith@WSI World. We simplify the internet. That's it for this particular episode. The bell has rung. Until next time, Deus Vol.